full-time working mom to two amazing boys. I'm Gina Stevenson, and I am a miraculous mama.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Presta. I want to thank Gina for telling us why she's a miraculous mama. And if you want to check out her birth story, go to the Patreon, the Miraculous Mamas, and you can listen to birth stories from women all over our community. And it's super empowering and cool because I've been recording them and none of them are the same, but yet it kind of brings people together when you know someone has had a similar experience, but each one is just so personal and different. So I'm so grateful to the women in our community for wanting to come on and share and just kind of join together in that way. For everyone just tuning in, Miraculous Mamas is a podcast, and we believe in empowering women through education and storytelling. So that's why we do have women who tell their birth stories, and education is key to help empower you throughout your birthing experience, to help empower you in motherhood, whatever your journey is as a woman. And we love bringing people on to share their expertise and their stories, and that hopefully we can just all kind of learn from. I'm actually super excited about today's guest. I have Dr. Christina Valentine on. She's a neonatologist, and she is just so awesome. She is a medical director for RB Health in North America, and she focuses on research and product development. She has her medical degree. She holds a master's of science in human nutrition, and she's a registered dietitian, and she also takes care of high-risk infants. She's just awesome, and she has so much to offer us this week. And one of the crazy things is that more than half of American babies are at risk for malnourishment. Did you guys know that? That is so crazy. And it's so true. And it affects their life. So during their first 1,000 days from conception until their second birthday, their nutrition has a profound impact on how they develop. So without proper nutrition during that window of time, young brains can't grow to their fullest potential, and it could be diminishing kids' opportunities for the rest of their lives. And that's according to the public health and medical organizations. So she talks to us about one thing that so many infants are missing in their diet when you're switching from breast milk to solids, and when you're making those changes, introducing new foods to your kids. She talks about the important things that so many kids are missing that does have a detrimental impact on their health. So, I mean, she's a neonatologist and she's just awesome. So I'm super excited to have her talk to us. So I'm going to get her on. I have Dr. Christina Valentine here today. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have her on and to have you guys hear from her. She is, she's a beast. She's a physician scientist focused on maternal and infant diet strategies to aid moms and infants throughout that process. She's the medical director for Reckitt. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Benckiser?
Benckiser.
Benckiser.
RB, just say RB.
For RB North America, focusing on research and product development. For Infogrow, she has a master's of science in human nutrition and a registered dietitian. And the aim of her research is to publish clinically translatable evidence in the neonatal nutrition and human milk composition. So you are I'm going to say it wrong.
I'm a neonatologist, but I'm also a pediatrician.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Both.
Yeah.
And a dietitian. Yeah.
Man. So that just sounds like so much schooling to me, but it also sounds very amazing because I'm very passionate about informing people. Like, we need the research. We need people like you out there doing this work to teach us. So that's awesome. You had to have gone to so much schooling for all the things that I just read off.
It was a long time, but throughout that journey, I was able to have that tangible effect on the patients I serve. So it made it so quick. It went by fast. And now having a nutrition background as a physician is not that usual. And it really helps me incorporate some practical stuff for other families.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I know that you kind of travel around a lot for your job. And you do a lot of research kind of with brain growth and nutrition that sets the foundation for optimal development. Can you tell us just kind of a little bit of the work that you do?
Well, thanks so much. Yes. To begin, I believe what really was insightful to me as a pediatrician, I was always focused on the baby, the child in the clinic. And what really has come out from a lot of our investigations and others is that nutrition importance starts at conception and pregnancy and goes strategically. You got to think about this throughout those first 2 years of life. Those first 2 years really set the foundation for the nutrient impact that can happen for the brain, not just for development and how school will go for these kids, but behavior. And I don't think a lot of parents understand. They might get it. They're at a birthday party, a lot of sugar, and they go, man, the behavior is really off. But conversely, if you have more focused delivery of iron, DHA, vitamins that are really high in those antioxidants, you can really affect their mood and behavior later. So it's a really critical window.
What are some, I guess, nutrient-dense foods that carry iron and DHA that you can give to, I guess, for infants or toddlers during those developmental stages?
It's a time period when the World Health Organization and the Academy of Pediatrics really align on this, and that is about 6 months of age, as that baby is either nursing or eating nutritious infant formula. They should start complementary foods that are really rich in nutrients. And when you think about iron or DHA containing foods, those foods are like salmon, lean meats, strained lean meats, that type of thing. And interestingly enough, a lot of our complementary food guidelines actually say to start with cereals, vegetables. So we're trying to change the landscape to say it appears that really getting those lean meats, salmon in your diet, egg yolks are really important. But as you can imagine, many that late stage in infancy or toddlers, they're picky eaters. They're not going to sit in a little lean piece of meat or a piece of salmon necessarily. And those are the richest forms of those kind of nutrients. Iron in particular, in the U.S., we have a big problem with iron deficiency anemia. 1 in 5 kids do not eat vegetables. As a matter of fact, the predominant vegetable that people think is important is a white potato, and that really doesn't count. What I tell parents, if it's white, it doesn't have a lot of that. It needs color.
Right.
So red, yellow, dark green food sources are so rich in those nutrients. Also, vitamin D is limiting in our kids, and we are seeing rickets when we haven't seen rickets for many years. So making sure vitamin D, really good dairy sources of foods, yogurts that have low sugar. In addition, what parents don't always think about is they say, I'm going to give this child a nutritious snack. And you look at the label and even some of the energy bars, some of the yogurts, some of the more natural looking foods have a lot of added sugars. So here you have this child who's picky eater. You have this important, nutritious, really deep colored foods that you need to get into them. And the bottom line is many of these kids are replacing those nutrition foods with high sugar containing foods. Mm-hmm. So to bridge that gap, we came up with a powder source called Enfagrow, where if you take a scoop of the powder and you add it to pancakes, muffins, or you just make a nutritious drink out of it, put it in a smoothie, it'll give you all those nutrients in a very palatable way that the kids will actually eat. That's very high in DHA for the brain, vitamin D for the bones, vitamin E for antioxidants and, helping that kid from getting sick. So really important to boost the nutrients in the foods that they actually will eat was my goal with that.
All right, guys, I'm going to take a minute to talk to you about BO, body odor, because it's something that I personally have struggled with. And it's also because I've been trying to find the perfect natural deodorant. I'm staying away from things like aluminum and parabens and talc and just things that aren't good for my body, and trying to stick to more plant-based products that I know my skin can absorb and it's not going to be bad for me in the long run. So finding a good natural deodorant really is a struggle. And I've talked to so many moms who say that once they've had their baby, that their body odor changed, or breastfeeding changed their body odor. And it's so hard to find a good combination that you can find that works for your body and isn't bad for your body. But Native deodorant, folks, they are safe, simple, and effective. And they have over 8,000 5-star reviews from their customers. That's how good they are. And it's something that I've been using for a couple of weeks now, and I've really, really enjoyed it. There's no animal testing, free shipping and returns, and they use plant-based products. So things that are found in nature, like coconut oil and shea butter and tapioca starch, which actually helps absorb your sweat. And Vito has noticed a difference. I'm not kidding. I had him smell my armpits the other day, and he was like, no, because he knows how bad they normally smell. And he was like, wait, what are you using? So now he's using it too. So he actually is on the Native train as well now. And it does work. So Native can hang out with your workout, your busy mom life, or a 16-hour day. Just test it out. I've been using it for my marathon training and just in my regular work as a doula. I cannot have smelly armpits helping out clients, and people love them. They've been on Pop Sugar, Hello Giggles, Good Morning America, in Women's Health, The Today Show, Elle, all over, because people seriously try their products and absolutely love them. Their ingredients, and it's totally worth it. Aluminum can be linked to some serious health ramifications, and I don't think that they're even that expensive. I love Native. I actually just ordered some of their soap too. I'm huge into bars of soap instead of liquid soap, and I'm not sure why, but we just ordered their charcoal soap and the citrus musk soap, and they smell so good. And I'm super excited to be integrating the soap products as well. And they do have something for everyone. They have the men's scents, women's, they have unscented formula and baking soda free formula for people who have sensitivities. The classic deodorant that I've been using is the coconut vanilla, which I love, but I also just got the eucalyptus mint. And I just ordered the travel kit. Oh my gosh, they are the cutest little deodorants. Like these mini sticks that you can carry with you anywhere. They're perfect for my doula bag. They're perfect just to have one in your car or your purse. It's literally tiny and it's awesome. So you can carry it around with you, because you never know when you're in a deodorant crisis. I've been out before and like, oh my gosh, I forgot to put on deodorant. That has happened to me far too many times. So then you just like have to do the arm cling where you're clinging to your side because you don't want anyone to smell it. I mean, if you have BO like I do. And there's just no risk to try it, guys. So subscribe and you can save 17%. You can save $2 per stick if you do their subscription. And yeah, I've just really enjoyed the products. So I have a code for you guys for 20% off your first purchase. Visit nativedeodorant.com and use the promo code BABIES during checkout. And that's nativedeodorant.com, promo code BABIES for 20% off. And there's tons of information online that you guys can check out. So definitely look at their website, see what products they offer. And also you help sponsor this podcast when you support our sponsors as well. So I encourage you to check out Native Deodorant. Tell me what scent you got, because I would love to know. I'm loving the coconut vanilla, but also on board with the citrus musk right now. So let me know what you got, and thank you for your support. So I know that you talk to parents about how to get picky eaters to eat. Is kind of that the Infogrow, I guess, is that, does that help kids want to eat, or is that just kind of supplementing, the nutrition that they need that they may not be getting from their food?
So yeah, two things. picky eaters, typically it's that time of development, and that's why they're picky. Their front part of their brain is growing dramatically, and they want that autonomy. They want to do things themselves. So having kids help you prepare meals, help you shop for food sources. I can remember trying to get my kids to eat asparagus. I just called them trees. I said, here, have a tree. Then they would eat it, if they could eat it that way. So coming up with really strategies to make the foods they'll eat more nutrient dense and get them to keep trying things. One thing that changes as a kid grows is their taste buds. So I always remind my kids, remember, your taste buds change. You might have hated it early on, but keep trying. So parents, keep trying some of these different foods and the way you prepare them. The other thing is sometimes you can broil your vegetables, like the dark broccolis, the yellow and red peppers, and make them soft enough and the kid can hold on to them and eat them, because part of a kid's pickiness is they hate the consistency. So sometimes when we make vegetables, they're mushy or they're with things that are mushy. They don't like mushy things. So just identify what your kids will eat, play around with preparation, and have that independence come through with variety for them. And then if they won't eat that variety, be reassured if you use a product that has those nutrients in there, we have recipes you can add to muffins, for instance. You can make your own energy granola bars in the oven or a smoothie that you can be happy that you have these nutrients more densely available for them and be reassured. And another thing is sometimes these kids are cared for by caretakers, not the parent. The reality is many of us work. We have other people helping us with our kids. So it also gives you some reassurance if you leave something like that with these folks that the kids at daycare or school or with a caretaker are going to get that nutrition if you just boost it a little bit with these vitamin A, D, E, 22 nutrients rich we have in this product. So when you add it to natural milk or add it to recipes, and also have it ready to feed in a drink so that you can just throw it in a bag and they can drink it over ice or with a smoothie or something else.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know for me, my taste buds changed in my 20s, and I don't know if it's true. They say it changes every 7 years or so, but I used to have a huge sweet tooth. Now I crave more salty and savory. I used to love vegetables. Now I like vegetables in a smoothie or a salad. So I make a smoothie almost every day. I love salads, but cooked vegetables, I'm so picky about now. I have to force myself to eat it. But I could drink smoothies all day. I made a green juice this morning. I love fresh, I guess.
Yeah.
But I know that in my around 28, my taste buds just completely changed. I used to have dessert after every meal. Now I could go days without even thinking about it. Or if I have dessert, I want salty again. I'm I need something salty to cover that up.
It's a fascinating business, the flavors that we are attracted to. And some of it began when you were inside your mother, some of the things that your mother exposed you to in your amniotic fluid and that you swallowed. So, I'm always talking to pregnant moms about watching the chatter on the internet that says you should be gluten-free or you should be dairy-free, because actually, unless you have a medical reason for that, those types of foods are really important for the microbiome. And in pregnancy in particular, eating those foods help bathe that amniotic fluid with certain peptides and proteins so that your kids will have less allergy later. So it's really important to not listen to too much chatter about being off a certain type of food unless you check with your medical provider, because really those food sources have a lot of value.
Yeah, I was actually, when you were talking earlier, food allergies was something that kind of popped in my head, because that's just something that we see more now than ever before. So I don't know if there's just more awareness surrounding it, or I know I have some sensitivities, but I mean, I don't know. I just feel like so many people have food allergies these days, and I feel like there's probably tons of factors that can contribute to it. Absolutely. But I've also heard some of it is in the foods that we're introducing to our children from a young age.
You're exactly right. Historically, in the medical community, we really thought that avoidance was the way to go if you had allergies. So if a mom had allergies and the baby was born, you try to avoid that so the baby has less allergies. And what we're finding is that the immune system, it's like vaccines. You need a little tickle of those T cells, a little bit of that protein so that your immune system is more prepared for that in your environment. So anthropology-wise, women would eat things in their environment and the little baby would swallow the amniotic fluid, be exposed to it, be born into the environment and be able to survive because they could ingest the same proteins. So now the new allergy research is really exciting because we're finding that perhaps moms should start on peanut paste, should have fish, should have eggs, and really tailor this in pregnancy, but also then instead of the generic rice cereal and plain fruits and vegetables that are the first food sources, we should perhaps change our guidance to be more strained meats, dairy, little tickle of protein from peanuts from in a soft paste form rather than, because they could choke when they're that little. But some of these introductions of foods that were historically waiting till after a year, that wasn't a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know I have some food sensitivities, but my stomach used to be made of steel. Now, the last couple of years, I don't know what's happened to me, but it's not. My husband is not a picky eater at all, but I love quinoa and he hates quinoa. And I've tried to prepare it different ways. I actually snuck it in last night. And he was like so he didn't want, and he eats literally anything. And he's just like, I just don't like the texture of it. So maybe I need to find a new way to present the texture of quinoa to him to make him eat it. I don't know.
Yeah, you might have to bake something, have a baked good or a granola bar made with it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, it's a texture. And all of us are born uniquely with different flavor buds and different textures and bitter versus sweet. So I often tell parents, try to see where your kid lands and be creative about how you prepare it, because sometimes it's about the preparation. If it's too soggy, if it's too hard, like you said, some kids like a nice smoothie. Also, some kids like butters, like almond butter or peanut butter. So you can kind of put this powder, nutritious powder, mix it in there and then put it on a cracker or, whatever they'll eat. So you can hide some of these nutrients even in some of the spreads that they like.
Yeah. I was reading in some of your research that you had found, and it was that a lot of times when people transition from formula to or breast milk to cow's milk, that's when they get an 80% drop in that DHA consumption. Is that just because, cow's milk doesn't contain the DHA that kids need?
A lot of regular cow milk, depending on how the farmer fed the cow. Now, I do know some Canadian farmers and other farmers who have fed the cows some natural DHA, some algal source DHA, and are able to naturally get the DHA up. But predominantly, regular dairy milk is not high in DHA. And so what happens is they go off, moms who eat a lot of DHA or taking their prenatals have DHA in their breast milk, as well as the formulas you choose, looking for that formula that has the highest DHA in it. That's really going to keep that kid on that trajectory for that great developmental outcome. Also, when you look at the food sources besides dairy that have natural containing DHA, it's the salmon and egg sources that have the chickens were fed some DHA. So there's limitations in the food sources also. Mm-hmm. So when the kid comes off that nutritious breast milk and or formula and goes to dairy milk, and then doesn't have that variety of foods, they have a huge gap in docosahexaenoic acid, or DHA. And we know those nerve connections from the hippocampus to the frontal lobe are exponential in that first 3 years of life. And I always tell parents, so it's never too late. Even children that are beyond that toddlerhood, school age, even us as adults, my work focuses on early pregnancy right now because of trying to get at this early, is that it's never too late for DHA, and making sure the foods or a nice algal supplement is there in your diet to get that DHA up. Or for us, as we've innovated the EnfaGrow, making sure that that has a source of DHA that can be palatable for those kids.
Yeah, I think that something that a lot of people don't think of is when you're eating meat or dairy, you're also eating what that animal ate. And I know in a lot of the factory farm industry in America, animals aren't fed their natural diet. They're fed corn. Corn isn't a nutrient-dense food now, especially since a lot of it's been modified. So that totally makes sense, everything that you're saying. Cows normally graze. They don't necessarily eat corn. Chickens are kind of scavengers. They eat slugs, they eat scratch, they eat whatever. They normally don't eat corn. I mean, they would eat it if it's there, I'm sure, because they kind of eat anything. But they're not fed necessarily. They are fed a primary diet of corn, and that wouldn't be their natural diet, which is actually changing the makeup of the protein and the nutrients that you're getting. So everything that you're saying, I'm like, whoa, yes. But
and, to be honest, I mentioned salmon, but to build on your comment, that's same for fish.
Yeah.
So wild-caught fish is so much more nutritious unless the farmer is really taking that into account, because if you look at the salmon that's wild-caught, they eat the beautiful, nutritious, very rich algae, so they get the DHA that way. So similarly, if you are a farm-raised fish, you are dependent on what your farmer is giving you, and you might not necessarily have that same nutritious, dense body. So we try very hard when we talk about nutritious opportunities with families is thinking about those products that, you have to take into account what the mother cow, the mother was ingesting on that food source as well. So maternal diet. So if the mom can continue to eat well with the toddler, the whole family becomes healthier in the research we've seen as well. So it's a family affair. Even though we're talking about nutrition for these little people, if everybody tends to eat this variety and this better way of preparing foods, the whole family does better. And then when the mom gets pregnant again, she does, her body's healthier for that next pregnancy. So it becomes a very important trajectory for these families.
Yeah. Do you work with, I guess, maybe families who are vegan for ethical reasons? Is the EnfaGrow something that they could still supplement or use?
Well, if they're strict vegans, it becomes very difficult. I often tell folks that they really need to see a registered dietitian, because it's extremely hard to get B12, and really smart dietitians know how to combine these food sources for, ethical reasons for these families. In general, it's important to just have a varied diet beyond vegetables for particularly small children, unless there's religious or ethical reasons. And so I really defer those folks to a registered dietitian who has that expertise to look at all the grains, vegetables, proteins, because one of the things we're learning from these societies that are very vegetarian, they have the highest preterm birth rate in the world. So once you eat so much carbohydrate, it turns into fat. It turns into that patient having a higher risk of type 2 diabetes. So unless you really have an ethical or religious reason, a balanced diet helps all those metabolic fuel fluxes to be more balanced as well.
Yeah. I know that we have a few listeners that are vegan, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, no, it's fairly important to keep them in mind and And I always defer to a good registered dietitian to just to check in every once in a while, particularly if you are athletic and vegan. You really need to make sure you're hitting all those high points with iron, B12, and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I've experimented with a lot of different dieting in my life, but for a huge part, in high school, I just didn't like meat, so I didn't eat it. I also grew up near farms and I couldn't handle it. So, I grew up in Nebraska, but, I am somebody who is pretty picky about sourcing my meat, when I eat it, just cause I think it's cool when you get to visit the farms and see that process, but, I won't get into my other views, but anyways, so as I'm going to say it wrong. You're a neonatologist?
Neonatologist.
Yeah.
So I take care of high-risk babies, but I'm also a board-certified pediatrician, so I can follow them as well.
Yeah. What exactly all does, I guess, a neonatologist include?
So being a neonatologist, you go to medical school for 4 years, you do a pediatric residency for 3, and then you do another 3 years of specialized training in neonatology, which is high-risk babies.
Yeah.
So babies that are born preterm with congenital heart defects, with other types of problems with their limbs or their brain, that they don't breathe correctly, that they're born term, but they have problems with sugar or they have problems with breathing. So those are the kind of babies and families that I serve. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So you had to do 10 years. I was counting. You were like 4, then 3, then 3. Because anytime somebody comes on, I'm like, I want to do that. And then I'm like, wait, that's probably not going to happen.
And that's after 4 years of undergrad. So
right, that's 14
really
years.
14 years.
Oh,
and then I did a graduate degree in nutrition. So that's another 2 years.
I think that's awesome, though, that you're combining the two, because I know most OBs, when you're pregnant and you go, aren't registered dietitians necessarily. They teach what they've learned, but I know that it's hard to include everything under one umbrella, so including the dietary, all the different needs from one place. So I think it's really important to know your body and your needs and to talk to somebody about that.
Yeah, and that's why as a neonatologist, I really, with my nutrition awareness, if you will, have bridged my real focus now back at that pregnant mother early in pregnancy to really make sure in pregnancy and then once she delivers, not only taking care of her little baby, but having her take good nutrients in so her breast milk has the richest form of nutrition for that baby. And a lot of people don't get that training. So the reason I travel around is that I really am talking to other doctors, clinicians, dietitians, nurses, pharmacists about my learning so that it can amplify into other communities, this training. And then at the University of Cincinnati, I've been very fortunate, and I get a medical student to work with me every summer to try to really teach them practical nutrition through a clinical lens. And of course, even myself, when I'm taking care of babies, I have a dietitian who rounds with me because it's so important to make sure that every nuance of nutrition for these little people is thought of. And likewise for the moms in our unit and talking to them about nutritious, rich foods, just like we're talking now about toddlers and kids and making sure she has that food source for her breast milk.
I feel like, what you're doing is amazing. And I think the education surrounding food is something that's really lacking in our country in general. The food pyramid's kind of been the same since I was a kid. And yeah, I'm super into all of that stuff. And I can tell you from personal experience, someone close to me, their child at a very young age started having some abnormal tics and behaviors, and they actually got him on an omega, and his behavior completely changed. they could tell, like when they took him off, he was a completely different kid. And right there, that shows that they need that healthy fat, that DHA, because you think a lot of the foods aren't nutrient dense, that the kids are getting. And you have to make sure that that's being supplemented in some way for them to properly be nourished. So it's crazy.
No, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. It's hard too, because, with weight gain and length, you can see it happen. When you check a heart rate, you can hear it happen. With the brain, we get way behind if we don't think about how much brain growth has to happen in that first 3 years. And not just that the brain and the head is getting bigger, but the connections to each part of that brain need that special myelin, that special fat that DHA is a huge part of. So why wouldn't you make sure that that was high enough? And I think just making sure people are more aware of it, and I think people will target it better.
Right. Well, and I feel that that's all that we're trying to do. I never want somebody to listen and feel guilty or feel like, oh, well, that's not how whatever. Like, it's not like that at all. It's just to let people be informed that you have options, I know mothers are trying to do the best that they can for themselves and for their children, and just having the information of, oh, hey, like, maybe I can check this out, or maybe that's something I can look into, just to, I feel that it's so important to continually educate ourselves and grow so that we can be the best versions of ourselves.
Yeah, to build on that, I want to totally say you are exactly right. No one should ever take this information and look back. You should just look forward, because the beauty of good iron and good DHA, vitamin D, those food sources, it's never too late to keep getting that built in your diet, especially for behavior and mood and how you feel. So it's never too late.
I know now, even as an adult, the vitamin D definitely affects me. I lived in Vegas for 12 years, totally fine. Moved to Chicago a year and a half ago, and I'm fine in the winter. I love the seasons, but come springtime, like right now it's May here. It's so gloomy outside. It's so back and forth. We'll have one day, like 2 weeks ago, it snowed. It was 80 degrees. Then 2 days later it snowed. And then it was so back and forth. And it's the couple of months between, April and May, kind of March, April, May, that I start to kind of lose it here. I feel a little more tired, and I kind of feel that what they call seasonal depression, and I have to up my vitamin D. And I do feel a difference. If I don't take it for a few days, I actually just ran out. I feel a difference because I know that that's something that helps balance my mood when the seasons are changing and I'm not like, hey, let's go outside, I feel
it's so important. I think, way back when, we were meant to be half naked, living under this beautiful sun, getting all of this great vitamin D in our diet, in our breast milk. And now we just don't have that layer. And that's why I really encourage people in your annual physical to really get a vitamin D level, and also think about it for your kids, because even in populations where we used to see vitamin D being very adequate, for some reason, either, because we have to wear sunscreen for other reasons or what have you, those vitamin D levels are just not where they used to be. So getting a vitamin D level, and at least knowing your baseline so that you can really address your food sources with D or your supplement is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Or we encourage you to be half naked again, living under the sun. That's another way. I'm down with that plan.
That's right.
In Chicago, it's kind of hard to do that.
That's right. I don't know. My skin cancer friends, might address that. So it's just a balance,
right.
It's a balance. Yeah.
So you had talked before that now you're working more with women did you say prenatal or in the first trimester stage?
Right now, my current focus is that first trimester in pregnancy, and really screening the mom's diet, making sure that they're on adequate prenatal vitamins. And then we're also doing a large study that looks at, we believe that perhaps the DHA should be a little more in pregnancy than currently in some of the prenatals. So we're looking at giving a little bit more adequate DHA in that early pregnancy to hopefully prevent early preterm birth, because what early preterm birth is early inflammation. So why that trigger happens, you'd win the Nobel Prize if you could figure that out. But we have learned from previous studies that we've done and animal models, as well as other international experts, that preterm birth can be impacted by having adequate DHA in early pregnancy. So that's become really important to me as a neonatologist. I'd rather have more healthy babies to take care of than having what families go through when they have a preterm birth. So that's the focus of the later stage of my career.
Wow. If you could determine what causes early preterm labor, that is huge. I feel like it's an ever evolving field, right? We're constantly learning. And that's something that I love with my job as a doula too. I'm like, people are forever going to be having babies, and everybody's story is different and everybody's life's different. So it's cool because you get to continue to learn and just continue to meet different people on different paths. Yeah. So it's just, I love getting to continually learn about this work. And so that's awesome what you're doing, just going through the different stages. You focused on infant and toddlers, now all the way back to the first trimester, because that is so important. That is when your baby is starting to grow. And when you nourish your body, you're also nourishing your baby. So
you're exactly right. And I meet a lot of same-sex parents too. I don't want to forget about them and the journey they have with different folks, and just making sure that whole family or that caretaker understands the nutrients they need for a healthy baby, the nutrients they need to promote more of that in their breast milk. And once you come off that nutritious breast milk or nourishing formula, really what food sources to take in. So it's this cool trajectory of really having the same message across all those time periods. So families, it's also not as complicated if they just say, you know what, DHA is important in early pregnancy. I got to make sure I take enough DHA when I'm breastfeeding. Therefore, these foods I should think about with these little people. Same thing with iron. Iron is so important in pregnancy for outcomes with children, as well as behavior when they're toddlers and beyond. So focusing, I think, also has helped me say, let's not make it so complicated for the families we serve and say, have this many food group and this and that, but really target the nutrients first and then what foods come from them, and really get those in, and then, add the variety with the other food sources in your diet. So what I'm trying to do is really target those great food sources that make parents really then it becomes a part of their lifestyle. And then your prenatal question, yes, my hope is to get into like school age children and really target those thoughts in the school lunch, in the school breakfast. Can we do better with our families, talking to our policymakers, et cetera, and at least getting these really dense targeted nutrients in so that we don't have these gaps in the United States that we're finding.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't remember the study that I read, but it had something to do with how basically malnourished our society is. And we have so much food here, and yet we're so malnourished. I think even for adults, it's super important to, like you said, when you're at a checkup, get your vitamin D tested, but just getting your levels tested and seeing where you are and knowing what you need to supplement in your diet or what you need more of. Because I've known in my life that's just made such a huge difference as far as like how I feel, in my mood and my behavior. So I think that's so important.
It's huge. And I can't shout out enough to the registered dietitians in the U.S. I mean, that's their business, and just seeing them once a year or a couple times a year to really focus and sharpen your saw on what foods you should focus on. It really makes a big difference because there's just so much chatter out there. And how do you really diffuse what you're hearing that's based on some science, that's based on outcomes? And I think that can really help a ton, as you say, to really, even as an adult, have a checkpoint on what foods you're getting in or what you're replacing healthy foods with and why you don't feel so well. And really start again, because it's never too late. I have a colleague at the University of Cincinnati. He does functional MRIs on the brain of people that do better omega-3s. And it's just amazing what you see that lights up in the brain. It's real, it's tangible. And I think if more people could just focus on a few foods to get in their diet 3 times a week, maybe just try to make it easy on yourself, just like exercise. Don't overdo it. Don't stress yourself so much. Just try to do it 3-4 times a week. Get your exercise in, get a nice walk in, have a good DHA containing food source or a supplement. And like you said, feel better.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you also work with, you give tips for traveling with toddlers and how to give healthy alternatives while traveling. Can you give us some of those tips?
Well, every parent and child is going to be different depending on what their consistencies are, but it's important, even going to sporting events, as they're older and they're in soccer, is that I used to pack just a little cooler. And nowadays you can even take these things on the airplane, and, slices of red and yellow peppers are so nutritious and the kid can hold on to them. Having a nutritious beverage like Enfagrow thrown in there for those time periods when you just have no access. Baking your own bars and your own muffins with a little nutritious spread with some butters that are, based on protein sources. Those go a long way as well. Because what I found with my kids is if they did have those nutritious snacks built into my plan, they didn't get as cranky on the airplane. They didn't get as cranky when we were in line at some of the entertainment places. So it really just taking some of this time when you're packing to throw a few of those protein-rich food sources, those really deep red and yellow vegetable sources, some spreads that you can put on crackers or things that the child will eat, is a really helpful tip.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. And I think preparation is kind of the big key. If you're always in a hurry, which I know tons of moms are, I'm not a mom yet and I feel like I'm always in a hurry, but it takes time to prepare these things. So even having, on Sundays or from this time to this time, somebody watches the kids, I do some food prep or I prepare some snacks, because that's what I know when I even get cranky. It's like, if I have to make something on the spot, I'm going to go for something easy. But if I have something already prepared, then it's so much easier to grab, vegetables that are already sliced, or I actually make homemade bars. But if that's not prepared, then I'm going to go for something that's easier and has less nutrients in it. It's like, okay, I'm starving now. I just need something. And then I don't care what it is. So I think preparation.
I think we also overwhelm ourselves with the thought of preparation. And actually, many of these items I'm talking about, particularly if you just take some time to carve out. I tell you, I have a calendar now that I block personal time and professional time, because you get away from yourself if you don't have this. But it doesn't take a lot of time. It really doesn't take a lot of time to boil some chicken thighs, let's say, or have vegetables pre-sliced. And really what's fun as your toddler gets older, it becomes a part of their learning, so that when they become older and they go to college, they're less likely to have eating disorders as well, because they're just going to have that basis of not overwhelming themselves with the preparation. So don't overwhelm yourself with the thought of it. Just take some time in your calendar once a week, whatever that day may be. If you have a toddler that's interested, do those food purchases with the toddler, prepare it. They have some cute children's cookbooks now that you can make cool little meatballs, or you can pre-make some of these chicken dishes and have where they're really going to be palatable. And then you can also pre-package them in your fridge. on certain days. I know I have 3 girls that I've raised with an amazing partner, husband, and he and I do a lot of that preparation because it does get so blessed busy, right? You're both 1 or 2 not working. Kids are in sports. There's other activities going on. So carving out preparation time, and it also can be really fun. So we do a lot of that with our girls, and find that it's time to crosstalk with a lot of sharing and chatting that doesn't happen. Just to put a plug into is making sure that time has no screen time whatsoever. Just put the phones away in a basket. Have it be that important time. Reading a cookbook from an actual book. Actually, one of my colleagues at Children's Hospital, actually in Cincinnati, has done amazing work at showing that you got to be careful with screen time because you can demyelinate what you've just myelinated in your brain. So making this a family opportunity can do both things for you. Really make sure the myelin you're building doesn't get demyelinated, and give you that family time with crosstalk that you can't believe what they'll bring up sometimes in these settings. So it's good.
Yeah. How old are your girls?
My oldest is now 21, a nursing student, and doing very well. And then I have a 18-year-old and almost 15-year-old. So now they're getting in that older, busy stage of their lives, and really trying to make sure in that next step they're still picking those nutritious things. It's every day always something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You said something about reading out of a cookbook. And I remember when I used to do that. Now it's always from my laptop or off of my phone. But I just got married a couple months ago, and something that my mom did for me, which I really loved, was she reached out to a bunch of our family and had people send in recipes. So it's like in a physical form, it's family recipes, it's all these different things.
Precious.
Yeah, and I love it. And then one of my other friends gave me a book that she's put a few of her favorite recipes in there and things for me to write down. I actually really love writing down things. So I should get back to that. I should get back to just writing down a favorite recipe, then it's already in that book, because every time I'm making something, I Google it. I'm like, how to make the perfect chicken breast. The other night I made pasta. I've never made pasta before for some reason for my husband. But Costco has this really awesome organic spaghetti noodles, and I got some there. And I was looking up how to make pasta, because you would think a 32-year-old woman knows how to make pasta, but she doesn't, because I never eat it. But I think it's nice to have something. For me, I like to have something tangible and in physical form, because for me, it's just more connecting in general.
No, it's great. I actually gave my daughter that for Christmas one year, is in my own handwriting.
Yeah.
Because one of my precious memories of my mom is cooking with her, and she passed when I was in medical school, so a long time ago. But what I have treasured is in her handwriting some of these recipes. And it's just invaluable. It's just tangible, like you said. And so I just wrote a whole cookbook for her, with my own recipes, some of the family recipes, so she could see my handwriting as well. So I think the era we're in, more and more folks are looking for more of these personal touch points. And with food, it's always been a social opportunity to do this. And so I always encourage families to do it as a group as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. Food is very, very connecting. My husband always says he thinks the center of a house should be the kitchen, because honestly, that's where I spend most of my time, most of my work. We have an office, but I prefer to do my work at the kitchen table. But yeah. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on or leave the guests with?
I just want to say that I really appreciate this forum. As you and I have talked about earlier, just being able to amplify the knowledge that we have found, as well as the experiences with a broader audience. And I can't thank you enough for that, but also reassure the people out there that there's always an opportunity to target things differently and to move forward with some really new recipes or new foods with your children. and opportunities to connect in ways that will go beyond their toddlerhood.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Christina Valentine, everyone. I will have information about her up on the Instagram page. I'll put it on Facebook and then on my website. So you'll have links there to find the supplement that she's talking about, information about her. And we just thank you so much. I don't know if I've ever had a conversation with a neonatologist before, so...
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully this will be your only one.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't want to promote that, but anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, she is awesome. I get that thing again where I bring people on. I'm like, oh, I want to do that with my life. And then it's like, oh, well, 20 years in school, carry the one. No, I'm good. But she's just so informed. And I love that she also takes care of high-risk babies and she's working with the maternal community and she's just so tightly knit and woven into it. So I hope that people were able to take something away. I also really, really want people to remember what she said about don't take the information and look back. Don't feel bad that, oh man, I haven't been doing this or whatever. Just take the information and move forward. How can we implement more healthy fats into the diet? How can we get our kids to eat salmon or whatever it may be for your family? I'm also going to have the information for the supplement she talked about, the Infogrow. If your kids are super picky eaters or it's hard to integrate those foods into their diet, maybe a healthy supplement is the route for your family. So I will have the information for that supplement that she talked about. She helped development. She didn't help development. She helped develop it. And all the information on Dr. Valentine will be up on the Miraculous Mamas Instagram. You can also check it out on the Facebook page. Don't forget to get involved in our community. We love the relationships that are forming and the trust and the ability to lean on other people throughout this ever-ending journey in our lives. I mean, it's from anything women's issues to trying to conceive, to pregnancy, to motherhood, to breastfeeding, to raising picky eaters, or even having grandchildren. That's the thing I love about our community. We have grandmas in there. We have women who are like, I think I want kids. I'm not sure yet, but I'm learning a lot. So whatever place you are on that path, definitely get involved. It's super, super important and cool to be in community and surrounded by women who are just going to love on you and not judge you. So definitely join the Facebook group. Follow the Miraculous Mamas Instagram. There's always tons of information on there. And yeah, I just thank you guys so much for listening. Thank you to Dr. Valentine for taking time out of her busy schedule of saving the world to come on the podcast and talk with us. And we did record this a while ago, so there was a couple of older references, but I'm so glad that I was able to get it released to you guys now. So thank you so much for listening, and I will talk to you next week. Love you guys. Podcast is brought to you by Wave Podcast Network. Check out all of our shows, including the Brain Candy Podcast, I Don't Get It, Coffee Convos, and Let's Talk About It.